Hello everyone, this is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful, Rabbit Hole, Lauren Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. So, lately I've been kind of following along with the Nick Rekieta situation, the drama, so to speak. I have been speaking out against Nick Rekieta for quite some time, since at least, I don't know, early 2020. It's been like a slow, steady, like kind of thing. I think like the seeds have been planted since like maybe late 2019, but it's been a long, slow decline to this point where finally we're seeing a significant group of people rise up against him and start calling him out on his nonsense. Specifically, that there is no functional utility on having a legal advisor on YouTube. LawTube should not be a thing. You should not be giving money to YouTube lawyers. They are parasites who are essentially telling you what you want to hear, regardless of what political affiliation they have. And in the case of Nick Rekieta, I think he really genuinely convinced an audience that he was legit, that he was actually going to go out and do stuff, that he actually had like all this experience like covering all these legal topics, when in reality he doesn't. And what we've seen now is that it has devolved, law-splaining the interwebs has devolved into like the Nick Rekieta show, where he just like senselessly just talks like about his personal life stories and stuff like that, and people tune in because ooh, it's Nick Rekieta. And I think we're kind of at the point that like, oh yeah, people are finally starting to like notice things, point things out, and kind of make like very bold claims. Whether or not they're true or not, I don't think really matters. I think the fact is, Nick's YouTube career has kind of plateaued. It's not going to grow at the exponential rate it used to. It's just going to stay about the same and then eventually slide into decline. This is how it works. This is how it functions. Like, people aren't going to stay invested in your channel forever, right? Like, this is why YouTube is not a functional career path, because nobody is going to spend their entire lives watching a YouTuber, right? It's just not going to happen. And in Nick's case, because he's so reliant on the live stream format, because he's so reliant on like a bunch of like losers with no life to tune in every night and watch him like complain about stuff for like 4 hours on like not even a set schedule, like it was always going to implode. Like, there is no such thing as a successful YouTuber, fundamentally, because you cannot maintain your success indefinitely. And in this case, I think a significant amount of people know what's up with Nick, know about his personal problems, know about his personal baggage, know about his, like, history as a lawyer to, like, stop... I think enough people know at this stage to stop taking him seriously. And I really wonder how this came about, because like I have my own personal story of like how I became disenchanted with Nick Rekieta. I personally have been like making videos about this for some time. I've been talking about it like somewhat casually. Rekieta went from someone that I deeply respected, who I thought was doing a lot of good, to someone who became a lolcow in my eyes. I do think we're at that point where we can classify Rekieta as a lolcow. And I think a big reason for that, it isn't necessarily because of the legal coverage, because although that's the reason I personally dislike Nick, because I realized his legal coverage has always actually been pretty poor. The issue, I think, is that he established a very specific persona to appeal to his audience, that he was like this very like family oriented person who made like a lot of good personal choices in life, and that's kind of how he turned out the way he did. Like a family man type guy, like someone relatable, someone who's like against degeneracy, who's against all this, like all the weird cultural things, and people, there is. His initial YouTube audience like really liked that about him. I really liked that about him. I thought it was perfectly respectable. And of course, there were a lot of red flags for a long time that was just a persona and that wasn't like really Nick. But now we have like confirmation. Now we have him like on live stream, like advocating for like the Baldo and like going to hedonistic resorts and shit like that, like whoring out his wife and stuff like that. We have confirmation this is true. Nick and Drex have both tried to damage control it, but I think too many people know that like the present, like the that that it is true, right? Like Nick Rekieta is a degenerate, and you know you can't make a career or like a YouTube channel like revolving around shitting on degenerates if you yourself are also a degenerate. You know what I mean? Like this is the problem I had with Drexel, and the reason why I was a lot more open about like shitting on Drexel like way before I ever shit on Rekieta was because like if you listen to Drexel enough, like if you have enough experience with women, if you have enough experience with like the things he's talking about, if you have like, you know, if you're actually putting yourself out there and actually think about this stuff, you'll realize very, very quickly that Drexel is the problem in all of his relationships and how he conducts himself and how he interacts with others, like what he focuses on, what he thinks is important. Like the reason why every woman he interacts with is a slut is because he only is interested in sex. Like that's the reality of his situation, is that the reason why everyone around him is such a degenerate is because he is as big of a degenerate as you can like possibly be. All right, like Drexel himself is the problem, and I think in a lot of ways, I think Rekieta was influenced by this guy to go down this path of like, you know, sexual experimentation instead of like actually just appreciating what he has in life. Like, right, like I imagine, you know, he married his wife because he was already rich and he was tall as fuck, right? Like he essentially fulfilled all of her needs in like the early 20s phase, but it feels like they don't really actually have all that much in common. You know, it feels like they have like a mutually beneficial, like parasocial relationship, you know, where she just kind of leeches off of him for money and stuff like that, and of course, like, you know, sexual favors. This is not like how you make a healthy relationship, by the way. But it feels like to me that now that they're older, now that they're settled into their adult lives, they're kind of like resenting the way their lives have gone down. Of course, like Nick has to do his YouTube stream, like has to do his YouTube stream. He has to like pander to his audience. He has to like pretend to care about shit he doesn't actually care about. He has to collect super chats. He'll do anything for money other than like go out and actually like do legal work, right? Like I've seen him like promote like these scam products. I've seen him like you know, advocate for all sorts of stupid shit, like every minor YouTube channel on the planet, you know, shilling Iron Liz's reboot of Lightbringer. Like I've seen all sorts of weird shit coming from the Rekieta camp just to keep those sub numbers up, just to keep the viewer retention up, just to keep the grift going. I feel like at this point, I feel like what's happened is that Nick has essentially surrounded himself with sycophants, right? The people who are telling him that, like, oh man, you're not doing anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with like what you're doing with your wife. Like they're just prudes. They're just looking down on you. They're just trolls, man. Like you shouldn't listen to them. Like the people who are saying that, like people on the Simcast, like the rest of these people in like the legal YouTube world, you know, people like Drexel, like they are. It really does come off like Nick Masterson. Like it really does come off like these people don't have Nick's best interest at heart, and are trying, in essence, to kind of like reaffirm, you know, either to promote their own YouTube channels, which I think is like the case for the vast majority of these grifters and these people in the sphere, or they're like directly involved in some way and have something to gain by Nick's behavior. You know, Drexel being there, you know, his wife, like things like that. Like again, it really does feel like Rekieta is like fundamentally one of those trust fund kids who never really built an identity for himself. I myself, I grew up around people like this. I know what they're like. They never really feel satisfied by accomplishing anything, you know, because they've had everything handed to them their entire lives, essentially. And although I think Nick is kind of struggling with like a midlife crisis kind of thing where he just doesn't know where he wants to go from here and stuff like that, and he's just honestly, because of the position he's in with the YouTube live streams and like his audience, like he feels like he can let loose and just let his worst impulses kind of dictate his actions and kind of just do whatever those sycophants around him want him to do. In this case, like just being like an active degenerate, like promoting degeneracy, just for like a cheap thrill, really. Like not doing anything productive, not doing anything valuable, not like, setting an example for the community. Just do what you want, bro. Nothing's gonna happen, man. It's pathetic. It was really, really, really sad to see, and it's only going to get worse from here. I think like anyone who's been following the situation to any degree can like see this at this stage, is that like it's just going to get worse and worse. And I just wonder when it's going to implode. I saw like Godwinson at his We Three Kings stream with like Ralph and like Asa Liari. I've never seen Asa's video, so excuse me if I mispronounced that name. But, great stream. I had a lot of fun watching it. But, like, Godwinson was, like, very adamant. Is that, like, his belief is that, like, Nick is going to get divorced from his wife, Kayla, Lady Rekieta. And I'm not sure that's going to happen. Like, I think they're going to stick together, and I think they're going to be miserable. But, like, my thing is, and I think the thing with like a lot of people, in the community, I think the bigger issue is that like what example are they going to set for their kids, and what set of example for their families, like the people immediately around them. It just comes off like I don't understand how you can like spend so much time like being such an advocate for like not being a degenerate on the internet, and then just honestly be a bigger degenerate than most people I know. Like I can't think of anyone who's proven themselves to be a bigger degenerate than like Nick Rekieta in the past year or so. It's not something that comes up all that often. It just seems weird to me. I don't know exactly, all the details. I've never met Nick in real life or anything, but like I tend to believe Ralph when he talks about like how he's always been this way, because I do believe it. I saw the signs. Everyone saw the signs, but like back in the day, it was just kind of a joke. Like, wouldn't it be funny if Drex cucked Nick or something like that? But no, it seems to be going in that direction. Now, I'm not saying Drex is literally fucking Kayla. I think they're just being. I think he's just a bad influence on the family. Like that's kind of been my thing the entire time. Is just like, why are you associating with this guy? Like, why are you associating with any of these degenerates? Like Dick Masterson is not funny. Like why are you around these people? Like you should have distanced yourself from these guys a long time ago. But instead, he's just doubling down on it and becoming more and more ridiculous. And more people are starting to call him out on it. I don't feel the least bit embarrassed at saying that, like, yeah, I don't like where Nick Rekieta's channel is going. Like, I don't like the way he's conducting himself, the way he's handling these situations, the way he's handling fan backlash, in particular, I think is going to kill him in the long term. I'm very curious just where things are going to look like 2 or 3 years from now, whether he's going to dial it back or double down on it. And I think we've seen enough at this point to say he is going to double down on it. That he is that he is going to become more and more degenerate. That he's going to keep taking advice from Dr. X, Drexel himself. Like I don't know. I don't want to like say anything for certain, but I do think it's going down this path where like the channel is just going to collapse due to alienating its initial audience and simply not being able to maintain, like, bring in new ones. Nothing he's doing now is going to interest any viewership. Like, I find myself like repulsed by the way he's conducting himself. I don't expect I will ever watch Nick Rekieta again. I mean, I can't even watch like those old streams he did, because now you can read in between the lines of what's going on and how he's running the channel and stuff like that. And just the illusion is broken. It's never going to come back. And now that like people know what you are, they're not going to like fall for your filthy tricks ever again. So I'm curious just how much longer is this going to go on? How much longer until Nick Rekieta's channel completely collapses and he's completely incapable of making a living off the internet? It might be sooner than you think. I think making money off YouTube is becoming less and less viable for the vast majority of the population. And although I think Nick is at like the tippy top of that of that world, I think eventually that's gonna collapse. It's gonna be unviable, like 20 years from now for sure. So I'm curious to see just how bad things get.